Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the Riddle of the Ivory Phial, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. A distant rumble of thunder echoed through the desolate halls of Riverton Manor, a spectral sound that seemed to vibrate with the very marrow of the night. The rain, unrelenting, lashed against the windows, blurring the already dim world outside into a gray canvas of despair. Inside, the flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows upon the walls, distorting the faces of those gathered in the drawing room. A collection of the curious and the concerned, all presiding over a dark affair that would soon entwine their fates with murder. And then, there he was, the figure emerging from the enveloping darkness. A man cloaked in mystery, resolute yet unsettling, as if he had stepped out from the very pages of a Gothic novel. Shadows clung to him like a shroud, and as he entered the room, a palpable tension gripped the air. This enigmatic guest, known only as Mr. Aldridge, bore an aura of foreboding, the weight of secrets gathering around him like the ominous storm above. It took mere moments for the conversation to become stilted, the murmurs of uneasy hospitality fading into an uncomfortable silence. All eyes were fixated upon him. Seated behind a massive oak desk, a sense of unease coursed through Hercule Poirot, the master detective renowned for his meticulous mind and unparalleled powers of observation. He leant slightly forward, his brows knitted together, contemplating the curious dynamics swirling within the room. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, taking note of the slight tremor in Lady Beatrice Whittaker's hand as she sipped her drink, the glass nearly slipping from her grasp. A longtime resident of Riverton, Lady Beatrice was a woman accustomed to holding poise under pressure, yet this night, something in the depths of her striking blue eyes betrayed an underlying fear. At the edge of the gathering stood Anthony, a distant cousin of the hostess, one often overshadowed by family heritage. With his charming smile and gentle demeanor, the young man harbored aspirations of grandeur, but in truth felt the insidious grip of desperation as financial burdens weighed heavily upon him. And then there was Mrs. Judith Mallory, the housekeeper, her mind sharp yet laden with secrets of her own, secrets that pierced the very fabric of the household. Each one of them, their hearts thrummed with their own unspoken truths, and yet they were drawn together in an intricate web of fate, ignorance, and treachery. It was exactly 10 minutes past 9 when the ambiance shifted. A shriek pierced the calm, reverberating through the very bones of Riverton. All heads turned toward the source, the study. Poirot, with each calculated step forward, found himself propelled toward the chaos that awaited him. There, amidst the splendor of leather-bound tomes and polished furniture, lay a body, lifeless and still. Mr. Aldridge sprawled face down, a jagged letter opener protruding from his back, glistening wickedly in the flickering light. The room was suddenly filled with discordant gasps and chaotic movements as they processed the horror before them. Lady Beatrice fell onto a nearby chair, hands trembling as she clutched the fabric of her gown. Anthony staggered back, nearly tripping over an antique rug, while Mrs. Mallory rushed to the scene, her eyes wide with disbelief as confusion painted her face. Yet it was Poirot's unyielding composure that anchored the storm, allowing clarity to emerge from the chaos. "Mon cher, the game has begun," he declared, his voice steady but laced with vivid anticipation. Moving amidst the gathered crowd, he began his investigation, his keen eyes surveying the room for clues. The letter opener, an exquisite piece with ornate engravings, presented itself as a distinct anomaly, a mere ornament turned weapon in a gruesome tableau. With methodical precision, he began to piece together the tangled tapestry of emotions and motivations cloaked in lies. As the hours ticked away, Poirot's inquiries cut through the apprehensive silence. "Tell me, dear Lady Beatrice," he prompted softly, locking eyes with her, "your acquaintance with Mr. Aldridge. Was it entirely amicable? With every word he sought not merely the truth, but the hidden facets of their emotions. The lady's demeanor shifted, a faint blush creeping under her pallor. He was a man of ill repute, Hercule. There were whispers, accusations, but I wished not to believe, she stammered, her pulse quickening under his unwavering gaze. Indeed, whispers can be most revealing, Poirot interjected, noting the slight quiver in her voice, even as his mind grappled with the implications of her response. As the evening unfolded, suspicion oscillated among the three. Deceptions unveiled themselves like petals of a flower. Anthony, it seemed, feared for his financial woes, and whispers of an inheritance lingered near him. Mrs. Mallory, too, maintained a demeanor of feigned indifference, yet a past entanglement with Aldridge lay buried. Somewhere in her history, a connection she was desperate to conceal. Yet as Poirot pieced together their stories, he found himself momentarily distracted by Anthony's apparent eagerness to assume responsibility for the mayhem, an act that verged on the insincere. "Ah, it seems almost too convenient, non?" he mused inwardly, sensing a chess match moving towards an unforeseen conclusion. But as he set his mind anew, determined to unearth the truth, another revelation emerged, eclipsing all previous conjecture. A tattered envelope, partially hidden beneath Mr. Aldridge's body, bore the unmistakable signature of Lady Beatrice. Each detail, delicate and intricate, painted a scene that transcended mere suspicion. Connections spiraled into havoc, each character trapped beneath layers of deceit. As the storm outside roared in defiance, Poirot gathered the three suspects, his voice calm yet commanding, drawing their attention back to him. Each heartbeat, thick with the mounting tension, echoed through the drawing room as he poised to reveal the tangled threads that bound them in this dire affair. But before he could reveal the truth, a piercing phone call interrupted, shattering the storm-laden night, forcing him to confine his revelations for the morrow. Yet within him, the realization lingered, a tantalizing thread of darkness that danced just beyond his reach. As Poirot stood surrounded by the remnants of chaos, he pondered the nature of human folly. Secrets might shelter, but they can bring to light a devastating truth. "Ah," he whispered to himself as the room's shadows deepened, "the heart hides many things, but the mind, mon ami, knows all." The night would end, but the game was far from over. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Shadows. The heavy rain continued to hammer against the windows of Riverton Manor, a relentless percussion that mirrored the chaos unfolding within. A flickering candle on the mantel table cast distorted shadows that danced across the walls, illuminating the faces of the now fearful occupants gathered in the drawing room. They were no longer just guests at a gathering. They were unwitting players caught in a lethal game of deception and dread. As Hercule Poirot, the master detective, re-entered the room where Mr. Aldridge had been found lifeless, he felt the palpable weight of the storm thundering outside, a fierce reminder that even nature itself seemed entwined with the sinister mystery at hand. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot whispered to himself, observing the anxious glances exchanged among Lady Beatrice, Anthony, and Mrs. Mallory. Each of them bore a unique burden, a shroud of secrets waiting to be unveiled. Lady Beatrice, whose calm facade now crumbled under the pressure, clutched her shawl as if it could ward off her fears. Anthony's charming smile had faded, replaced by a glassy stare that flickered with hidden desperation. Mrs. Mallory stood in the corner, a towering figure of denial, yet her clenched fist betrayed a storm of emotion barely contained within. The tension in the room was thick like the fog swirling outside, and Poirot felt his pulse quicken with a mixture of intrigue and anticipation. The pieces of the puzzle are scattered, but how fascinating, he thought, letting his gaze wander over the array of latent tensions. What secrets lay behind their polished exteriors? He had observed enough during the initial chaos to understand that there was more than one mere coincidence at play. The first act of his investigation began as Poirot commanded their attention with a sweeping gesture. "Dear friends, we must delve deeper into our entangled lives, for truth lies not only in the great tragedies, but also in the small, unspoken moments," he began, his voice a husky murmur as he probed into their psyches. I must ask each of you to recount your movements just before the grim event." As they spoke, Poirot honed in on the subtleties. The way Lady Beatrice's voice wavered, how Anthony's gaze flitted nervously to the door with every rumble of thunder, and Mrs. Mallory's seemingly practiced calm, which only masked the turmoil beneath. What secrets did they hold? With careful precision, he guided their narratives, weaving between their overlapping stories, fishing for inconsistencies. "Tell me, Lady Beatrice," he inquired, fixing her with a piercing gaze. "You have known Mr. Aldrich for some time. Surely there were whispers of his character that reached your ears? Secrets that colored your acquaintance?" A light blush crept into her cheeks, and she hesitated, taking a moment to steady herself. "Indeed, Hercule, whispers do swirl, but one must take care not to fall prey to frivolous gossip. Mr. Aldrich, he could be charming, yet there were tales of debts and dark business dealings." As the conversation unfolded, suspicion shifted like shadows in candlelight. Poirot introduced subtle inquiries to dissect their statements. He offered Anthony an inquisitive stare, detecting the fleeting flicker of guilt when questioned about his finances. How the young man ached for the inheritance that might be his. It is curious, is it not, how relatives can sometimes become entangled in such dark affairs, Poirot noted to himself. Was it not your recent loss that drove you to consider resorting to extreme measures? Poirot pressed, watching as the color drained from Anthony's face. A deft maneuver indeed. Young Anthony gasped and stammered, I would never harm anyone." "Then what of Mrs. Mallory?" Poirot pivoted, turning to the housekeeper, whose demeanor had shifted from indifference to outrage. "You must understand, Mrs. Mallory, your insights are entirely crucial." "Me? I have no involvement in such affairs. I kept to my duties," she retorted, though the steel in her voice carried the weight of unspoken thoughts. Poirot noticed a faint tremor in her hands, barely perceptible yet significant. As the investigation progressed, Poirot's acute perception brought forth other elements that cast additional shadows upon the characters. He uncovered the crumpled bill hidden within Anthony's coat pocket, a debt demanding immediate repayment. Such desperation could whisper treachery in the right ear. Meanwhile, a series of intercepted letters between Lady Beatrice and Mr. Aldrich hinted at a relationship far more complex than mere acquaintance, vivid truths lingering just beyond reach. Just as he anticipated, an intricate web of deceit began to clarify. A veritable kaleidoscope of motives each character hid beneath their seemingly benign exteriors. Yet as Poirot prepared to lay bare the initial conclusions of his inquiries, an unexpected twist materialized before his eyes. In the quiet commotion of the group, a sudden knock on the door drew everyone's attention. The air shifted, a moment thick with uncertainty, and Poirot commanded silence. The door cracked open, revealing a frail gentleman who introduced himself as Inspector Campbell, a colleague of Poirot. "I bear urgent news," he declared, a distressed frown creasing his brow. The newcomer's arrival briefly diverted the focus, allowing Poirot to inwardly curse the interruption. As Inspector Campbell divulged details of Mr. Aldrich's nefarious dealings and connections to organized crime, Poirot's thoughts raced just ahead, another layer unspooled, and he realized he might have overlooked an essential thread. "Ah, but the heart can be so dangerously fickle," he murmured to himself, piecing together the fragmented shadows of treachery. At that moment, a discarded matchbox caught his eye, positioned artfully atop the mantel. It belonged to Anthony, but its presence was unmistakably linked to Lady Beatrice, who was now glancing at it as if it were a serpent lurking in plain sight. To uncover the essence beneath their layers, Poirot expertly orchestrated a final confrontation. "Summon your spirits, my dear friends," he declared, the air heavy with anticipation. "For I have pieced together the truth of that terrible night." With a few deftly chosen words, he illuminated the intricate connections. Lady Beatrice, knowing of Mr. Aldrich's past and fearing he might reveal her own secrets, concocted a scheme to silence him. Gasps enveloped the room, but Poirot was unfazed. Yet intertwined in your fear was the desperate hope of Anthony to claim the inheritance after Aldrich's demise, an inheritance you, the housekeeper, felt entitled to for services rendered. Both women's eyes widened, and at that moment, Poirot pulled out the matchbox, revealing the hidden aspect of their motives. The matchbox connected to both of you. An argument erupted during that stormy night, and in a fit of rage, a letter opener became a tool of betrayal. But there was another dark player, lurking. He paused for effect, the shadows stretching menacingly around him. Mr. Campbell, it was you who orchestrated this turmoil, aware of the cracks in the foundation. The inspector's shocked face transformed into a mask of calculated apathy as the room gasped anew. Betrayal unveiled among them. The final piece fell together as Poirot concluded with a cold steel resolve, unveiling the tapestry of lies, each character entangled and yet revealed. In the end, it is not merely the act of murder that entwines you all, but the darkness of desires in your hearts, he pronounced ominously, his voice echoing through the chamber as thunder billed unrelentingly outside. The weight of his revelations lay thick in the air, silencing the storm for just a moment. As for Mr. Aldridge, all his shadows were brought to light. Yet it seems the greatest darkness lay not in him, but in those who had wished him gone. Poirot's final statement echoed lingeringly into eternity, fracturing the quietude of the stormy night, leaving behind the whispers of irrevocable chaos. Chapter 3. The Vanishing Artifact. A chilling scream pierced the utter silence of Riverton Manor, echoing through the dim corridors like an ominous warning. In the flickering candlelight, shadows danced across the walls, twisting into grotesque figures that foreshadowed the horrors to come. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the gallery, his sharp instincts tingling in response to the palpable terror that gripped the very air. The priceless artifact that had adorned the manor's hall was now missing, and one of the guests was left trembling by the display case. "Mon Dieu!" exclaimed Lady Beatrice, her hands clutching the delicate lace of her shawl. "It cannot be!" Before Poirot could respond, Anthony's voice quivered in the dimness. "It's just not possible. It was here mere moments ago, I swear." His panic-stricken eyes flitted back to the empty pedestal where the luminous emerald, a family heirloom, and a jewel steeped in sordid history had once gleamed, a fiery green heart amidst the otherwise muted tones of the room. Mrs. Mallory, the housekeeper, stood rigid in the corner, her eyes darting between the two young people as if calculating their innocence, or perhaps their guilt. Her voice came out in a low, steely whisper. "Some fool must have taken it. It should never have been displayed so shamelessly." The agitation in her demeanor hinted at personal stakes. She had long claimed her own attachment to the artifact, perhaps owing to her decades of service at the manor. With deliberate precision, Poirot stepped fully into the gallery. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, his brilliant mind swirling with possibilities. "Each of you hides behind shadows of motives, yet who dares to unveil their depths?" As he studied each guest's reaction, the murky emotions masked beneath their polished exteriors began to unravel. Lady Beatrice, though renowned for her exquisite composure, exhibited a fleeting look of relief before her mask returned, a surging wave of guilt barely contained. Anthony's coronatory, youthful bravado had given way to a visible dread, his features pallid under the glint of candlelight. And Mrs. Mallory, resolute and defiant, possessed a furtive awareness. She had been in charge of the artifact's protection, after all. What a tangled web we weave, my friends. The theft of a mere object, yet it reveals a fabric woven with threads of desperation and secrecy, Poirot declared, as thunder rumbled like the drumroll of fate outside the windows. "Pray recount to me the events that led us here. What were you doing? What did you see?" Each provided an account, but weaknesses arose in the stitches of their narratives. Lady Beatrice's retelling was tense. Her hands quivered as she recalled the recent tension over the heirloom, which had ignited fierce debates about how it would be displayed. I wasn't even close to it during dinner," she insisted, a shade too vehement for Poirot's discerning ears. Anthony sputtered defensive justifications about maintaining the jewel's glory before dinner, yet his eyes darted toward the door. An exit, a chance to escape the implications. Had he coveted the emerald and lost control of his desires? Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallory, while vocal about all the superstitions surrounding the jewel, seemed to know too much about its potential worth, frequently glancing at it as if recognizing an opportunity hidden in its absence. As Poirot skillfully maneuvered among discrepancies, an unexpected knock reverberated through the hall, pulling their focus from the drama before them. Each occupant's breath held tight as he opened the door to find Inspector Campbell once again, his brows furrowed with urgency. "Poirot, I came to advise you of rather peculiar occurrences surrounding the theft of supernatural artifacts within the region. There have been similar incidents. It appears someone has a taste for the more mysterious treasures." It was a bizarre twist of fate that moment, sweeping suspicion up en masse again. Each party involved exchanged glances that hinted at more treachery than they were prepared to reveal. "Naturally, it is intriguing, but tell me, my friend, have you found anything suggestive about this potential collector?" Poirot's mind raced, amplification of his already churning theories, while the answer hung indecisively in the air. "Only that the curator at the local museum expressed keen interest in the emerald," the inspector replied, his voice low. Much to Poirot's delight, this added a potential red herring amidst the suspects. Intrigued by the curator's possible connection to Riverton Manor, he began probing the depths of the night, focusing his attention on the connections rather than the artifact. Act 2 shifted into a series of interrogations where Poirot keenly observed, swiftly navigating through the ebbs and flows of consent and denial. He prompted questions that unmasked hidden jealousy, lust, and rivalry among them. Anthony's financial strains surfaced again when queries surrounding motivations led to the discovery of his mounting gambling debts. "Could desperation lead you to commit such an act?" Poirot inquired, watching Anthony's expression closely. "No, I am just a simple man who admires beauty and tradition," he shot back weakly, a hint of defiance masking fear. Poirot's glance shifted toward Mrs. Mallory, her indignation morphing into defensiveness under scrutiny. "And yourself, dear lady?" he asked softly. "You have been here longer than any of us, perhaps overshadowed by such treasures? Would you not wish for a reward for your years of loyalty?" Her faltering glance briefly connected with Lady Beatrice, and Poirot keenly noted the tremor each felt, an emotional storm within the gallery, rife with resentment and veiled contempt. A sketchy theory began forming, but Poirot was missing the linchpin, a hidden truth, or a truth that might just reveal the ultimate betrayal woven intricately among them. The museum curator re-entered his thoughts, persistently, almost hauntingly, as he realized he had overlooked the finer nuances of Mrs. Mallory's long-standing relations. "An opportunity or a ghost of desire?" Poirot whispered to himself. He contemplated how, perhaps, Mrs. Mallory had fueled jealousy toward Lady Beatrice. It was she who possessed all, and each monument of wealth might cast shadows upon those relegated to the sidelines. The investigation took a turn as Lady Beatrice began distancing herself from Anthony, worrying aloud how she could not trust anyone, especially those who had once seemed loyal. There seemed to be a past intertwined with all those present, a prior meeting of desires and ambitions that festered beneath their polite facades. To give Anthony her trust felt perilous, while Mrs. Mallory's long-held judgments cast her in an undesirable light of bitterness. With tensions rising and a storm brewing outside, the threads connecting them all began collapsing upon themselves. Poirot decided it was time to reveal the tangled knots of suspicion. Inviting them all into the drawing room, he set the stage for the truth to unravel. "Beloved friends, allow me to unveil a tapestry woven with the strands of human folly. We have a thief among us, not merely for an artifact of value, but for far grander motivations beyond that simple emerald," he declared, watching their reactions closely. It was then that Poirot unveiled the curator's involvement, revealing he had a former partnership with Lady Beatrice, an a connection buried under pretenses created to shield her from ruin. "The letters Simon sent in desperation to you, conveyed through Mrs. Mallory's hands, lay hidden beneath the very mantle we are gathered around, twisted in dark desires." Gasps erupted from their lips. Confusion reigned for a moment until Poirot's eyes captured the truth in a flicker of recognition. "But it is clear now," he continued. "Our housekeeper, perceptive yet treacherous, has forged an alliance with the curator to create this chaotic play of deceit, distracting suspicion with her phony disdain for wealth." At that instant, the tension shifted as Mrs. Mallory's wrath spilled forth, her denial now replaced with an unforeseen eruption of anger. "You know naught of my sacrifices. This was my only hope." Yet it was Lady Beatrice who remained stunningly composed. One cannot betray with such consciousness without bearing the weight of their own reflection. "Mrs. Mallory," she retorted coldly, triumph flickering in her eyes. Poirot turned toward the door, where the curator lingered in shadows overhearing the tempestuous revelations. As if drawn to the very center of the storm, Poirot stated earnestly, "Your heart has hidden so much beneath layers, and yet it was not a singular treasure you sought, but rather the path to reclaim what you believed lost." With the truth now laid bare, the power struggle collapsed among the players. The ultimate betrayal emerged, a tender alliance forged between the seemingly innocent curator and Mrs. Mallory, a bond tied by shared desperation for the allure of the emerald, veiling resentment and longings amidst the dark chaos. As the scene illuminated the tangled web of motivations that had ensnared them in malice, Poirot's voice delivered a final piece for emphasis, lingering heavily in the air, a somber reminder of the consequence of their desires. "Thus we find that the heart may yearn for what it cannot possess, but alas, it is the mind that unravels our very selves." In the echo of his words, even the relentless storm dared to pause, as though paying tribute to the revelations that lingered among them. The darkness enveloped Riverton Manor, but Poirot left behind more than mere echoes. He left a haunting, whispering reminder of that which was revealed and the truths yet hidden in the shadows. Chapter 4. A Clue in the Dark. The storm raged outside Riverton Manor, as if the heavens themselves conspired to drown out the secrets brewing within its walls. Thunder crashed in a cacophonous roar, shaking the very foundations of the creaking house. In the flickering candlelight, shadows danced ominously, and an unsettling whisper floated through the halls, stirring the heart with dread. A fleeting scream, muffled by the thunder's rumble, echoed from the library, a chilling harbinger of the chaos that unfurled within. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the room, the tip of one meticulously gloved finger pressed against his chin in contemplation. The emerald's theft had cast a pall over Riverton Manor, yet now a far graver matter had taken root. The lifeless body of Anthony, the young heir, lay sprawled across the floor, his expression forever frozen in a mask of terror. In the glow of the candles, the sheen of his brilliant suit became a stark contrast to the pallor of his skin, and for a fleeting moment, Poirot felt the weight of tragedy sink into his chest. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to Yarn, himself, his sharp mind already weaving through the strands of despair. Before him stood Lady Beatrice, whom the storm outside had brought to a trembling standstill. Her elegance was marred by fear, tears glistening in her eyes as she clutched her shawl tightly around her. "This cannot be," she gasped, her voice a hushed whisper, laden with disbelief. He was just here. I saw him not moments ago." Poirot noted the tremor in her hands, an actress caught in the web of her own narrative, struggling to maintain composure in the face of overwhelming horror. Beside her was Mrs. Mallory, the housekeeper, a woman of resilient gait and shrewd eyes. She surveyed the scene with an unsettling calm, her voice low and deliberate. "This was bound to happen, Monsieur Poirot. They all said it would. The artifact, the arguments, it brought out the worst in us." A hint of bitterness laced her words, suggesting her long-held grievances against the occupants of the manor, perhaps nourished by years of servitude under their privileged roofs. The air thickened with tension as Poirot's mind raced through the possibilities. Each character before him wore the mask of tragedy, yet beneath the surface lay unspoken motives and hidden truths. Particularly, Anthony had not only been burdened by the emerald's theft, but also by the storms brewing in his own life, mounting debts and jealousy toward Lady Beatrice, who had gazed with longing at the very treasure that now lay shrouded in mystery. Poirot's unyielding gaze fell on the youth's cruel fate, riddled with threads of desperate ambition and unfulfilled desires. The heavy ticking of the grandfather clock echoed through the stillness, a metronome marking the passage of time as Poirot gathered the fragments of the evening. He turned his attention to the library's dark corners, searching for clues amidst the growing shadows. He ventured toward the nearby table, where broken glass glinted ominously, a shattered teacup, its shards, strewn like confessions waiting to be unearthed. As Poirot's fingers toyed with the jagged edge, a thought struck him. The breakage could not possibly be mere accident. Each person present became a cog in his intricate puzzle, their alibis intertwining like the tempest outside. Earlier, Lady Beatrice had confessed feelings of betrayal, yet her eyes, those windows to the soul, hinted at something deeper, more wicked. What had transpired between her and the young heir? Surely their fates were stitched together in dark threads of jealousy that now lay in fragments around them. Engaging her with a carefully veiled respect, Poirot inquired, "What did you hear, my dear lady?" In these turbulent hours, we are ever the collectors of whispers. Her cheeks flushed and she hesitated, searching for the right words. "I heard them argue. Anthony was distressed. It was about the emerald." At this, Mrs. Mallory interjected. "They fought like children over a toy. If only they understood that such things come with a price." Her tone bore an edge, a deep-rooted resentment surfacing with every utterance. In covert moments, she shot an astute glance at Lady Beatrice, revealing an unspoken rivalry. "Indeed, secrets are necessary currency in these halls," Poirot observed calmly, gathering the foundational truths begun to unfold. The storm grew fiercer, and shadows seemed to obscure the portraits lining the walls, reflecting the malignance brewing among the human form. As the investigation continued with Poirot probing deeper into each character's forbidden thoughts, clues emerged yet failed to shed light on the entire proclivity of crime. He learned of Anthony's recent gambling debts, heartlessly digging his own grave through deceit and desperation. Mrs. Mallory, meanwhile, hinted at the stark attachment she had developed toward the heirloom she had so desperately wished to protect, her years of service forming an intricate web of loyalty. Yet by whom and at what cost? In the end, Poirot crafted an uneasy truce, employing every moment of tension to stoke the flames of revelation. Just as he began to sense the threads intertwining, a sudden flicker from the library's candlelight drew his gaze beyond the door, revealing an unfamiliar silhouette hovering ominously in the shadows. Before he could react, a strange voice cut through the stillness. "I am looking for something, Inspector." It was the curator, Simon, emerging from the dark, his face etched with clandestine intensity. The revelation sent electric shock waves through the gathering, and all eyes turned to Poirot. The emerald, a mere lifeless stone to you perhaps, but a conduit of emotion and desperation nonetheless. Poirot's mind raced, led astray by Simon's unexpected presence. The curator unveiled his passion for the supernatural, claiming that the emerald's allure beckoned him. Yet within the layers of adoration lay twisted motivations. An emotional bond flourished between him and Lady Beatrice, sparking jealousy and envy within their fragile ties. "Ah, the heart lays bare before us." Poirot's voice rose with conviction, piercing through the chaos. With every relationship entwined in yearning, misalignment marred by the callous hand of a shared goal. The once familiar tension turned darker, each player's perception of innocence now a mere mirage in the tempest. As Poirot revealed each layered truth in the swirling chaos on the canvas of the night, Anthony's untimely death came to be, a tragic interaction of providence and fate. The young man's gambling debts and hidden affairs had served as the catalyst for a darker deed. Betrayal and ambition now reigned supreme, leading the unsuspecting Lady Beatrice into a diabolical web, spun by a twisting romance with the curator. Suddenly, the revelation surged forth, a connection between Anthony's undoing and Simon's involvement, masked by their shared desire for the emerald, a metaphor for the unattainable. With reluctance, Anthony had become the prey of their schemes, the unfortunate casualty of an entangled path marked by ambition. As the tempest subsided into an eerie silence, Poirot turned to the gathered figures, their expressions a harsh reflection of emotions laid bare. It is within the shadows we have unearthed truths, the darkest of hearts entwined in layers, deceiving even themselves. In that chilling moment, the darkness of Riverton Manor bore witness to not only Anthony's tragedy, but the crumbling facades of those who had sought power over emotions they no longer understood. The price of their ambition unveiled, dark and twisted, left them standing amidst evaporating remains of trust. As Poirot stood in the solemnity of their revelations, he cast one final glance toward the lifeless figure of Anthony. Thus we learn, my friends, that a heart in pursuit often stumbles over the stones laid in its path. Beware the desires we nurture. Their shadow may turn deadly. With that, the whispers lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the depths to which we could fall when bound by unquenchable yearning. Chapter 5. Threads of Deceit. The whispering shadows of Riverton Manor had begun to throb with unspeakable dread. For in the eye of the tempest, darkness coiled serpentine around the very heart of the house. A soft, anguished cry reached out from the confines of the library, where the life of a young heir had been mercilessly snuffed out. The air grew heavy, thick with secrets as Hercule Poirot stepped across the threshold, his meticulously polished shoes barely making a sound upon the carpet's rich, crimson fibers. In that dimly lit room, surrounded by encroaching shadows, he beheld a ghastly sight. The motionless body of Anthony lay sprawled on the floor, eyes wide and glassy, forever imprinted with the horror of his final moments. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he whispered to himself, aware that the truth of this tragedy was wrapped tightly within a fabric of deceit. Responding to the earlier tremors of chaos, Lady Beatrice now stood rigid against the parlor wall, her once elegant demeanor diminished into a mask of horror and despair. Tears cascaded down her cheeks, and her trembling hands clutched at her throat, gasping for breath in a throaty whisper as she stammered, "What evil has come upon us?" Beside her, the housekeeper, Mrs. Mallory, bore a stoic expression, her shrewd eyes darting over the scene as if sifting through the remains of a horrific puzzle. "Perhaps this was fated, Monsieur Poirot," she said coldly. "An heir like him ought to have known that desire incurs a toll." Her voice carried the tone of a seasoned observer, yet a deeper resentment simmered beneath the surface, likely forged by years within these opulent walls. In the flickering candlelight, Poirot observed the tangled web of emotions and motivations surrounding them. Who, in this desolate hour, had the most to gain from Anthony's demise? The times were tumultuous, marked by greed and ambition, and as he crossed the threshold into the heart of the mystery, he decided to pry deeper into the emotions that clouded judgment. Lifting his brow, he fixated on Lady Beatrice, her delicate frame quaking with suppressed grief, and he approached her, distilling the chaos into a singular question. "What did you hear in those fateful moments before the storm erupted?" I heard them argue," she exclaimed, eyes widening with the weight of her confession. "It was not but moments before he—" She trailed off, a shudder coursing through her as she clung to her shawl like a life-preserver. Poirot saw the flicker of guilt in her expression, a tiny betrayal of her own desires. Did she not harbor her own aspirations related to the emerald, a coveted jewel that whispered promises of grandeur? From the corner of the room emerged Simon, the curator, his face pale and sharp, a visage marred by obsession. "I came to borrow a book," he offered, though his voice betrayed an inaudible tension, the implication clear as he avoided their gazes. The curator's own backstory wove a bitter thread into the tapestry of animosity, motivated less by the emerald's beauty and more by a burgeoning infatuation with Lady Beatrice. Poirot turned to him keenly, sensing the hidden fold of treachery woven into Simon's every word. "Ah, the evening wears long, but the heart seeks that which it craves," Poirot mused, his mind working like clock gears turning in unison. As Poirot pressed further, Mrs. Mallory interjected, her voice dripping with palpable disdain. There was a pact between them, a hidden alliance perhaps. They sought to be rid of the family's influence, and the emerald was merely part of their grander scheme. In her tone, a desperate yearning to expose the inner workings of her employers transgressed through layers of smoldering frustration. Yet Poirot, with his eagle-eyed precision, detected an undercurrent of jealousy in Mallory's revelation, concealed longing for a life she could never attain. Moments later, the conversation shifted. Poirot discovered that Anthony had been mired in debts that pockmarked his reputation, a fact that painted him as a puppet dancing atop strings of desperation. His name had become entangled in scandal, and behind Simon's fervent pursuit laid the weakness of a heart fractured by envy. As Poirot peeled the layers like parchment, revealing burnt edges, new threads emerged, each intertwining with the last. Suddenly, an unexpected stroke of insight struck. A shattered teacup sheathed in echoes from the earlier argument. The shards now scattered like the fragmented truths, hollering in silence. Could it be deliberate? Had the delicate cup broken during a fit of rage? Or was it a chilling token emblematic of the discord that had consumed them? Poirot sensed a foreboding connection entwined within its jagged edges. Through his questioning, Poirot uncovered whispers of clandestine exchanges, hidden, glances that hinted at alliances and betrayals intertwined amongst the group. Each character wore a mask, concealing the tumult that swirled within. Their alibis crumbled under scrutiny, each fragment revealing darker currents beneath their composed surfaces. Just as Poirot felt he had deciphered the code wrapped within this exquisite irony of desire and remorse, he stumbled upon a red herring of unintended consequence. Lady Beatrice had left a note, discovered abandoned in the folds of her gown that intimated thoughts of jealousy towards Anthony. "I could not stand to see him with another," it read, letters quivering with fervent declarations. Poirot's heart fluttered. Had he misjudged the very source of this vile chaos? The subtle warmth hidden beneath her protestations could easily invoke an illusion of guilt. Had she truly loved him, or was this a play masquerading under the guise of passion? As the moon cast its silver shards of light through the impending storm clouds, Poirot gathered them together once more, the inevitable reveal looming on the precipice of his tongue. "Ladies and gentlemen," he proclaimed, "the heart's desire reveals its darkest ambitions most profoundly. There exists a thread that binds you all, yet the fabric of betrayal is spun from the weakness of love and jealousy." Under his unwavering gaze, the facade began to crack when a shadow fell across the library. The echo of Anthony's ambitions reverberating through the air, alive again. The truth shimmered beneath the surface like the glow of the emerald itself. "It is you, Simon," Poirot fixated on the curator, "who sought to wield the emerald's allure as your own. Yet intertwined is the fatal jealousy of a lover scorned, laid bare in your reflections." To his astonishment, confusion washed over Simon's features, as if the spotlight of judgment had illuminated hidden depths. "But I loved her," he stammered, only for the shadows of Lady Beatrice's heart to cast a deeper, mournful pall over them. In that final moment, Poirot revealed the true tragedy. Love had kindled the fatal flames that resulted not only in ambition, but betrayal, binding Simon and Lady Beatrice in a tableau of unforeseen consequence and operatic despair. With finality, he noted, "A heart in pursuit oft stumbles over its ambitions, mon ami. Beware the desires one has nurtured." The silence that enveloped Riverton Manor echoed with residual torment, a place now stained forever by the threads of deceit, interwoven among four confused souls, and Poirot turned, leaving behind an unfinished symphony of longing and regret, a dark reminder that in the pursuit of desire, hope can metamorphose into peril. Chapter 6. The Illusion of Trust. The flickering candlelight cast erratic shadows across the ornate walls of Riverton Manor, each wisp of darkness alive with whispers of betrayal and desperation. A torrential storm raged outside, the wind howling like a specter seeking vengeance, while inside the grand hallway, a tense silence hung thick. It was then that a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, echoing off the marble floors and flooding the manor with an icy dread. Poirot rushed toward the source, his heart racing, though his mind remained poised and analytical. He arrived at the library to find Lady Beatrice collapsed on the floor, her face pale as porcelain, trembling at the sight of the shattered vase that had once held fresh roses. The petals lay scattered like forgotten dreams, a chaotic reminder of fleeting beauty. "Monsieur Poirot," she gasped as he knelt beside her, his keen eyes assessing the scene. "It is Simon. He is gone." "Ah, but the human heart, it conceals many things, mon ami," Poirot whispered, his thoughts already spinning as he regarded the broken vase, shards glistening in the dim light. "Tell me, what happened?" She took a shuddering breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "We quarreled over the emerald, and then I left to fetch my shawl. When I returned, he was gone." Poirot pushed aside the nebulous chaos that cloaked her words. He rose with an elegance that bespoke confidence even in the face of horror. Lady Beatrice was not the only one trapped within this dark web. He could feel the weight of others lurking just beyond the shadows. The door creaked open to reveal Mrs. Mallory, her steely demeanor cloaked in an unexpected air of concern. "There's been enough drama for one night," she said, her sharp gaze darting around the room. "The emerald. How could such folly lead to this?" Poirot regarded her with a calculating stare. "Ah, Mrs. Mallory, you seem uncommonly interested in the emerald's fate. How well do you know the curator?" The housekeeper straightened, her lips curving into a thin smile masking deeper emotions. "A mere servant's regard, Monsieur Poirot. Perhaps more than others, I understand the price of desire." Intrigued, Poirot turned his attention to the more elusive figure who had now emerged from the shadows. Gerald, a distant cousin of the late Anthony, known for his gambling habits and calculated charm. With an unkempt appearance reflecting a lifetime of barely suppressed chaos, he took a step forward, breathing heavily. "What brings you to this mess?" he asked, his eyes flicking toward the door with an unnerving urgency. "Ah, Gerald, you too have danced with ambition," Poirot replied, his gaze unwavering. "Perhaps tonight offered a more perilous gamble than you anticipated." "I came to speak with Simon about a loan," the cousin confessed, unease washing over his sharp features. "He was to help me in exchange for my silence." A tense silence settled then, punctuated only by the storm's growl outside. Each character caught in a moment of uncertainty. Poirot observed them carefully, each quiver of their hearts illuminating the truth that twisted uncomfortably beneath the surface. The glint of jealousy, ambition, and hidden motives were interwoven, a tapestry he had come to know all too well. As Poirot began his inquiries, it became evident that the emerald was more than a mere object of desire. It was a symbol representing unattainable dreams and the brutal realities that often accompany them. "Tell me, who else was meant to partake in this night's discussions?" Mrs. Mallory hesitated, her steel veneer cracking. "Simon spoke of someone else, but I did not hear the name." Gerald shot her a crooked glance. "Someone else? Was it that woman he had been secretively meeting?" Poirot watched the exchange like a spectator at a shadowy theater, intrigue sparking within him. Moments later, he waited by the window. Outside, the storm raged, thunder rumbling like unsolved mysteries, while inside, humanity teetered on the brink of revelation. "Ah, the heart is a deceitful friend," he mused, his gaze drifting to the darkness beyond the glass. "It plays tricks, creating illusions that blur clarity." Suddenly, the tension spiraled as the conversation shifted to the mysterious woman with whom Simon had been in frequent contact. The thought alone sent trepidation through the room. What did this woman want? He prodded, enjoying the palpable tension between his subjects. It was like choreographing a ballet, each character stepping into the spotlight at the precise moment. "Nothing but the emerald," Gerald replied, a quiver lacing his voice. "She believed it would free her from her past. Not unlike ourselves, it seems." As the pieces fell into place, a surge of realization washed over Poirot. Two conflicting threads wove through the chaos. Everyone had tangled ambitions stitched together by the same desire. The ruse seemed to unravel, twisting upward like smoke, revealing how easily trust had blurred among them. In the dim light, Mrs. Mallory's eyes flicked toward a bookcase laden with tomes of antiquity. He thought of her as a confidant. Perhaps she betrayed him? Poirot paused, glancing at the heavy volumes, and something nagged in his mind. The heart's follies are often revealed in unexpected ways. On the heels of his thoughts, a sudden break echoed from the darkness, startling the three unsettled figures. It was a desperate cry, followed by a muffled thud, a sound that surged through the fabric of tension filling the space. With an air of urgency, Poirot rushed to the source, his heart pounding along with the storm. He uncovered Simon sprawled on the library floor, his lifeless eyes wide open, face marred by a mask of fear. Alas, poor Simon, he lamented softly as his examination revealed a single shard of glass, piercing through the fabric of Simon's coat, a shard from the broken vase. It appears the truth spills out like crimson wax from a candlestick. The illusion of trust flutters like a moth to a flame. The weight of despair settled heavily upon the room. Could it be that the omen of the emerald had driven Simon to unforeseen depths of desperation, to confer a fatal blow upon himself or by someone else seeking soul possession? As Poirot prepared his summation, he knew that within shadows lay truths as jagged as the very shards that had brought them to this reckoning. You all danced around a deadly truth, betrayal not of your foes, but of one another, masked in instance of trust. At that moment, a glimmer of clarity struck him like lightning illuminating the clouds. It was you, Gerald. You used Simon's vulnerabilities to usher him towards danger. Betrayal flickered across Gerald's face, his mask cracking, under pressure as truth poured like rain through the cracks of the facade. I merely sought my freedom, he stammered, desperation spilling forth like dark ink. In the end, Poirot gently drew the pieces tightly together. Trust had been an illusion, a ceaseless tide that had crashed upon the lives of these individuals, forever altering their paths. Beware, mes amis. The heart, once poisoned by ambition, reveals its deepest secrets often too late. As the echoes of a life stolen flickered within, the dark corners of Riverton Manor, the shadows deepened, stretching like an eternal night, leaving behind a testament to the human heart's perilous pursuit of desire. Chapter 7. Blood-Stained Memories. A distant clap of thunder shattered the fragile silence of the night. Breaking the stillness like a cocktail glass carelessly fell to the floor. In the heart of Riverton Manor, the shadows clung to the corners like ghosts refusing to depart. Poirot, struck by the scene unfolded before him, felt the weight of dread course through the very fabric of the air as he stepped into the dimly lit corridor. It was as if the house itself mourned. The atmosphere reeked of betrayal and lingered with the unshakable stench of fresh blood. The storm outside mirrored the tempest brewing within the walls, as anguished cries echoed through the chambers, a cry for the truth yet to be unveiled. Mon ami, he mused, stepping into the gallery, fingers brushing against the ornate banister. It seems as though this night is shrouded in the echoes of the past, tainted with the blood-stained memories of those who once revered this hallowed ground. His keen eyes observed the trembling figure of Lady Beatrice standing in the flickering candlelight, her veil of composure unraveling as she observed the horrific scene, a canvas cast in tragic strokes of crimson. "Simon!" she gasped, tears reflecting the flicker of light as they trembled upon her cheeks. "He is dead!" With the air thickening around them, Poirot knelt beside the lifeless body now lying unnaturally upon the polished floor, the essence of life brutally stolen. A broken vase lay shattered nearby, a familiar artifact from before, its once pristine porcelain now laced with red stains that seemed to speak of desperation and despair. He observed the subtle details with meticulous precision, his mind dancing with the potential motives coursing through the air. "Ah, but the heart, it conceals many ambitions, does it not?" he whispered to himself, frowning slightly as he contemplated the still form before him. Pulling himself upright, Poirot turned his penetrating gaze toward the small gathering encircling the room, like hesitant moths drawn to an unwelcome flame. Each displayed an emotional tapestry that seemed to tell tales of their own, threads woven with envy, regret, and dread. There lingered Lady Beatrice, her affection for Simon transformed into a cocktail of sorrow and disbelief. Mrs. Mallory, the housekeeper, wore a stony exterior that hinted at fragilities buried deeper than the surface allowed. And finally, Gerald, the distant cousin of Anthony, loomed as a shadow in the corner, his features betraying hints of torment and uneasiness. Who could commit such an atrocity? Lady Beatrice struggled to ask, her trembling hands clutching the tattered shawl around her shoulders. It struck Poirot as ironic. The very garment meant for comfort now draped her in existential agony. "The emerald," she finally blurted, her eyes wide with frantic realization. It must have incited a darker ambition. "Perhaps a desire to free oneself from their own turbulent past, my dear," Poirot replied with a calm determination, letting the reigning silence banter with his words. "What of you, Mrs. Mallory? Your loyalty lies here. Do you cherish Simon's demise?" Her expression remained unreadable, yet the subtle tightening of her jaw spoke volumes. "We are all pawns in the realm of love, Monsieur Poirot. Are we not?" she replied evenly, yet the sharpness in her tone suggested hidden stakes. "But loyalty and desire rarely walk hand in hand. The heart is swayed by the silken thread of ambition. Neither I nor anyone else carries his blood upon their hands." Gerald's movements were furtive, betraying an urgency that felt more pallid than foolish. He glanced nervously toward the door, as if contemplating a hasty escape. "What more to say?" he began, his voice quavering inelegantly. "Everything has a price, after all. I came seeking assistance from Simon, not to end his life." The jagged syllables hung heavy in the air, more an entreaty to Poirot than an assertion of innocence. "Ah, but your need appears to stem deeper than a mere financial dalliance," Poirot countered sharply, cutting through the tension like a knife serrated with truths. "If Simon had conspired to aid you, it bore the fruit of animosity. The blood upon your conscience, Gerald, merely stains the soul." With every question posed, he could feel the air thicken with trepidation, as though they were entrapped within a psychological web. Each character cloaked themselves with ambiguity, revealing just enough to entice suspicion. "And what of the mysterious woman Simon was rumored to be meeting?" Poirot inquired, his tone measured, contemplating the elusive queen of their shadowed chessboard. "Perhaps she meant to eliminate her connection," Gerald stammered. The flawed reasoning echoed in his voice. "Everyone has secrets. Perhaps even love could foster a betrayal. Jealousy, after all, makes kin of envy and death." As Poirot retraced the intricate steps that led them all to this moment, he climbed the staircase flowing with frustration and confusion, his thoughts fixing upon Gerald's insisted resentment. He spent hours conducting his investigation, piecing together the layers of gossip that draped upon each of his suspects like a fine fabric, hiding illusions beneath each weave. The thunder rumbled, and it felt as though the whole world was echoing the underlying chaos inherent within them. Yet each fragment of truth seemed too jagged and wild, scarcely a path toward a resolution. Then amidst the unruly storm, a tantalizing thread emerged, a glimpse of a red herring that Poirot had momentarily overlooked. Lady Beatrice's breath caught as she half turned away, revealing her private turmoil. Perhaps it wasn't just Simon's death that haunted her, but a betrayal stemming from unresolved affection. With an elegance gained from the depths of observation, Poirot pieced together an image that conjured memories stained with both vibrant shades of emotion and a bitter edge of despair. Underneath the turbulent tempest, they all held pieces of a shattered heart, eager for the truth. Eventually, as the storm abated and dawn began to pierce through the gloom, Poirot summoned his suspects to reveal the tangled web of culpability. "It was you, Gerald, who believed you could wrest control of your desires from Simon. You fanned the flames of ambition, leading him and others towards tragedy. Yet in that revelation where Gerald's facade fell, it birthed another betrayal that struck deeper. I wished to show Simon the light he had malformed, but I did not wish him harm," he protested, desperation spilling forth, now drowning in the glare of Poirot's unwavering insight. "Ah, Gerald, the heart is a capricious entity, is it not?" Poirot mused. "The shadows of your deepest regrets cannot shield you from the tempest of misguided love. Simon, in his final moments, sought to unveil the glimmers of passion that had long been buried. But those glimmers became daggers of the heart, leading to the irrevocable stain upon these memories." With the final pieces falling together, Poirot stood amidst the ruin and the revelations of blood-stained memories. "Beware, mes amis. The labyrinth of love holds peril at every turn, each betrayal a manifestation of desire untamed. The weight of his words lingered, echoing within, the hollow expanse of Riverton Manor, granting the ghosts of those who remained stained with the lessons of the heart's dark allegiance. Chapter 8. The Game of Subterfuge. The storm raged outside Riverton Manor, each flash of lightning illuminating the turmoil of secrets thrumming within its walls. As the wind howled its mournful wail, a chilling scream echoed through the corridors, breaking the uneasy silence and shaking the very foundation of the manor. Poirot stood at the threshold of Lady Beatrice's lavish sitting room, his heart pounding. A soul had departed, but was it by the hand of another, or a tragedy born of despair? The tempest of emotions that brewed behind the elegantly draped curtains hung heavy in the air, saturated with tension and raw grief. Barely able to articulate her horror, Lady Beatrice stood at the center of the room, her face pale and stained with tears. "It's Gerald," she gasped, her voice trembling as she pointed toward the corner where a figure shuffled, with erratic movements, maybe a victim of shock or guilt. He's gone mad. I heard him in here just moments before. He couldn't have." Poirot's keen eyes flitted over the scene, absorbing the details with practiced precision. The flickering candlelight danced grotesquely across the ornate wallpaper, casting long shadows that twisted and turned as though alive. Fragments of a shattered porcelain vase lay scattered on the floor, glimmering like ghostly stars amongst the darkness. "Monsieur, Gerald," Poirot began, with a calm that belied the chaos surrounding him, "can you account for your presence here?" Gerald's demeanor oscillated between confusion and defiance as he stammered, I came seeking solace. Simon had promised to assist me, but instead I found—" His voice paused, horror bleeding into his words. "It was as if he was playing some game, taunting me." "Ah, but the human heart," Poirot mused, his mind unraveling the intertwining threads of motives. "It hides many things. Mon ami, fear, certainly, but also desperation that can lead a man to commit the unspeakable." Gerald's eyes darted toward the doorway, his body rigid as if ready to bolt. Was he a man indeed haunted by utter panic, or was there a more devious truth lurking beneath his facade? Across the room Mrs. Mallory stood, her expression inscrutable, yet a tempest brewed behind her impassive mask. "Lost in a game of chance we all are, Monsieur Poirot. Simon turned his back on me, thinking I would be complacent. Now the remorse is thick enough to suffocate." Her sharp gaze met Poirot's, and there was a flicker of something. Resentment, perhaps. "But murder?" she replied coolly. "No, that is something I could never condone." Yet something in her tone felt gratingly false. A frayed thread that hinted at deeper ambitions weaved within her stoic exterior. The line of inquiry deepened as Poirot turned his attention to the elegant figure of Lady Beatrice, who had retreated to the window, her trembling form just visible in the shadows. "You were close to Simon, were you not?" he inquired gently, although he noticed the way her eyes darted away when he pressed the matter. "The bond you shared, could it have incited jealousy or vengeance?" At this she spun around, eyes ablaze. "Jealousy? I was his confidant. His secrets were troves I vowed to protect." With newfound fervor she continued, "It must have been that mysterious woman he was meeting. She sought something from Simon, perhaps, even to ensnare him in an insidious web from which he could not escape." Her breath hitched with the weight of truth, yet Poirot caught the flicker of self-interest dancing behind her sorrow. What benefited her the most? Simon's safety or the involvement of a rival? The evening unfolded into a chaotic waltz of accusations and confessions, ill-defined truths weaving a thick cloak of suspicion over each character who milled about in debilitating anxiety. As Poirot began his meticulous examination, he sought clues amidst the discord of their words. Sharp fragments of murmurs suggested collusion and animosity, while buried beneath layers of grief was an overarching motif of deception. Amidst the questioning, a sudden realization dawned upon Poirot like a stroke of lightning, illuminating hidden paths. He recalled Lady Beatrice's prior mention of a strange figure seen lurking near the library. It reeked of desperation, an outsider with ulterior motives. Tell me, have any of you observed anything amiss before this dreadful event unfolded? He asked, gauging their reactions. Gerald, growing more agitated, exploded forth. We should be cautious, Poirot. This house breeds shadows, and I fear we are not alone. All the while we are mere players, footnotes in someone else's sordid tale. The storm outside intensified, mimicking the chaos unfolding within, while Poirot dissected their words. The motives laid bare before him like a stage. But a shroud of forgetfulness obscured one. Crucial detail, the identity of the mysterious woman, the specter against which Simon had now fallen. Yet why did this fact prick at his consciousness when it remained just out of reach? Perhaps it was time to speak with the others again, to peer into the hidden recesses of their minds. As Poirot continued to navigate the emotional landscape, he posed questions that held a mirror to their souls. Who among them was truly in control? Who had orchestrated this deadly game? Piece by piece, the pointed de watch, revelations fell apart as connivance seeped through the cracks. Voices trembled with accusation, revealing the conflicting scars borne by jealousy and ambition. And then, in a moment of insurmountable darkness, Poirot reached the core of the labyrinth. As the clock ticked ever closer to midnight, he gathered the fractured puzzle before him, the web of lies woven so adeptly that even he had overlooked an essential thread. It is you, Lady Beatrice, he stated, a calm certainty settling into his voice. In your desperation to forge a partnership, you conjured a specter who fanned forth mistrust between men who held aspirations beyond your reach. The silence that followed was deafening, the room's tension tightening like a noose. Every eye fell upon Lady Beatrice, realization dawning amid the pieces crashing into alignment. What? How could you? She gasped, color draining from her face as the gravity of Poirot's deduction sank in. With a steely gaze, he elucidated the final strands. Attempted manipulation that had twisted words and influenced desperate hearts. All the while, a dark undercurrent of revenge was revealed, with Lady Beatrice, caught in her web of ambition, having inadvertently led Simon to his demise. Her hidden ambitions had sparked a game she could not control. Ah, mes amis, Poirot sighed softly. It is the heart that plays us all for fools, where the true player is often hidden beneath a veil of dismay. The chilling truth laid bare. The shadows crept, closer, enveloping Riverton Manor in an air of mournful silence, while Poirot's words echoed a somber truth. A reminder that beneath the surface of every game lies a shadow, and in that shadow, betrayal brews, until it is too late to summon forgiveness. Chapter 9. The Accuser's Betrayal. The heavy downpour lashed against the grim windows of Riverton Manor, creating a symphony of anguish that mingled grotesquely with the echoes of whispered secrets within. Just beyond the flickering candlelight, shadows danced with sinister glee, mocking the edifice that held its dark memories close. It was amidst this tempest that Poirot found himself captivated. His discerning gaze fell upon Mrs. Mallory, now the self-appointed accuser, whose trembling hands clutched the fabric of her gown like the weight of guilt upon her conscience. It was him, she declared, voice weaving through the air like a ghostly lament. It was Gerald who had the most to gain from Simon's demise. Poirot, perched gracefully against the ornate fireplace, observed the unfolding spectacle with acute scrutiny. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. The fervent outburst of accusation felt like a chilling wind gusting through the assembled company, where each man and woman wore the shroud of suspicion like a second skin. Gerald, eyes wild, shot back with indignation. Lies! You dare to point fingers while you yourself were envious of Simon's fortune. His voice trembled, revealing an undercurrent of panic. A man's desperation unveils truths unwelcome. The flicker of candlelight cast elongated shadows, and as Poirot considered the characters before him, he sensed that the heart of Riverton Manor pulsed with the rhythm of a tragedy yet to unfold. Each suspect, an actor in a twisted play, carried burdens heavier than their secrets. Lady Beatrice stood regally aside, her eyes betraying fragments of a past entwined with Simon's ambitions. They glimmered with unshed emotions. a mix of loss and unresolved desires. The identity of the mysterious woman that had haunted the air grew ever more elusive, echoing regret, yet the faces surrounding him held a more tangible threat. Within the confines of that darkness, Poirot began his meticulous inquiry. He approached Lady Beatrice, the air thick with anticipation. "You loved Simon, did you not?" Love often breeds the sharpest of jealousies. His words, cool and measured, sliced through the palpable tension, casting a net of inquiry over her demeanor. Her posture stiffened, but there was an unmistakable flicker of vulnerability hidden behind her arthritic smile. "I did, yes, but not in the way you think. His pursuits were noble, yet mired by avarice. How could one be envious of a hollow man?" The venom in her tone was undeniable. Though she spoke of care, her emotions oscillated chaotically like the raging storm outside. With a discerning eye, Poirot turned to Mrs. Mallory, who stood with an impenetrable facade, her mask of calm, unyielding despite the tumult around her. "And you, madam, do you carry a grievance?" he inquired, probing the depths of her icy resolve. Her laughter was hollow, reverberating against the stone walls. "Grievance? Hardly. I sought only to protect the integrity of my household. Simon's wild whims threatened its very foundation." The sharpness of her gaze did little to disguise the flicker of something akin to dread, as if she too grappled with the shadows of betrayal lurking just behind her stoic mask. The chaos of accusations coiled tighter, pulling at the fabric of friendship and loyalty that had once tethered them all. Poirot's mind skated across the tension hanging in the air. A sequence of subtle clues danced before him like phantoms. There lay the broken vase, arrayed like shards of their shattered alliances. Gerald's notorious gambling habits whispered of debts gone awry, debts that might lead to murderous intents. Each revelation was a smoldering ember beneath the surface, simmering with devastation and greed. Yet amidst this intricate web lay a cacophony of misdirection, flourishing with reckless abandon. Poirot pressed further, weaving his inquiry through the discordant melodies of truth. "Tell me, Monsieur Gerald, how did you discover Simon's death?" He paused to absorb the tremor in Gerald's voice as he responded, I simply felt it. The air grew heavy, suffocating, and I ran." A confession steeped with panic emerged as the words danced around his trembling lips. A morsel of doubt stirred within Poirot's astute mind. Could it be that the very confessor now teetered on the precipice of deceit? Yet this perplexing riddle of the human heart drew forth a deeper layer of intrigue. The juxtaposition of Gerald's desperation with Lady Beatrice's poised fury on the stage of uncertainty sparked a realization that struck him like thunder. Could this be a tangled plot where each bore the mark of their own hidden betrayals, a churning pit of emotional leverage that threatened to consume them all? As the storm raged outside, Poirot sifted through the revelations. The candles flickered defiantly against their impending darkness, illuminating the crux of the tale. He gathered all, steeling himself for the unraveling of their fears. "Ah, mes amis, it is not merely the hands of the clock that shall reveal the truth," he began, his tone regaining its regal confidence, "but rather the echoes of the heart crying for justice." As he prepared to wrap his arsenal of deductions around them, one crucial detail reverberated through his mind. A fleeting shadow he had dismissed earlier, obscured until now. The identity of the mysterious woman Simon had been entangled with, a faceless specter that whispered sweet nothings, but was, in essence, a harbinger of betrayal itself. "It was you, Madame Mallory," Poirot declared, his voice steady as the storm broke above their heads. "The desire to forge your legacy eclipsed by the ghost of jealousy. You might have feigned ignorance, but you sought something within Simon, a affection that could only birth tragedy." The revelation hung in the air, crackling electrifyingly, as breaths were collectively held in shock. "No!" she shrieked, her composure collapsing like the thin veneer of an unyielding mask. "You are wrong. I had nothing to gain. I simply wished to remove the taint of his influence." Her betrayal reeked of desperation, the sorrow of a woman crushed not merely by love lost, but by the sprawling consequences of her own liaisons. A poignant reminder that the quest for affection often leads only to devastation. The truth coalesced into a poignant tableau as Poirot surveyed the faces that betrayed flickers of realization, understanding the depth of their moral transgressions intertwined within the web of human connection. "Ah, but mes amis," he spoke slowly and deliberately, "the heart plays us for fools. It is the shadows of our desires that weave the tapestry of betrayal. In your pursuit of justice, you yourself became the architect of sorrow." With the storm subsiding, echoing the clarity that swept through the room, Poirot stood regally amidst the fragments of their shattered truths, a chilling epilogue echoing through the hallowed manor. In that silence, the weight of regret hung palpably, a sorrowful dirge for memories lost beneath the darkness of ambition. Riverton Manor would forever stand as a witness to the labyrinth of love that concealed peril, its shadows, twisting and turning, eternally trapping those foolish enough to weave their own demise. Chapter 10. The Final Revelation. In the heart of the relentless storm, as flashes of jagged lightning splintered the sky, a figure lay motionless upon the cold, marbled floor of Riverton Manor. The clock, relentlessly ticking, marked the time of tragedy, while shadows flickered and danced wickedly along the walls, whispering secrets lost to the night. As Poirot stepped into the dimly lit chamber, the air thickened with despair, carrying the electric tension of unspoken truths. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he mused quietly to himself, for tonight would unveil the darkest underbelly of ambition and betrayal. With a sharp intensity, Poirot surveyed the lifeless body of Gerald Fielding, an erstwhile partner, and a man burdened with secrets now laid bare. The stark, bloodied hue against the white marble floor seemed to echo the chaos that had unfolded this eve, rippling through the hearts of those present in the grand manor. Amidst the swirling tempest outside, three people stood frozen in various states of shock and horror: Lady Beatrice, Mrs. Mallory, and the irascible Lord Preston, each obscured by their own veil of guilt. The question lingered palpably in the air: who had committed this heinous act? Lady Beatrice, her porcelain skin pallid and drawn, trembled as she clutched onto the edge of the armrest with white-knuckled resolve. Once the epitome of elegant ambition, grief now masked her eyes, spilling over with fear. I saw no one," she gasped, though her words dripped with fraught uncertainty. She had loved Simon, and yet, did her heart harbor a festering jealousy for Gerald's sudden, untimely ascent? It was a distance that created shadows deep enough to drown a soul. Beside her, Mrs. Mallory held a calculated expression, yet a flicker of something more lurked behind her steely demeanor. Pity that he was not merely extravagant, but foolish too. Too many hands meddling with dreams wrought his downfall, she contended, her voice surprisingly calm amidst the rising tide of chaos. Had her quest for control over her household clashed with Gerald's recklessness? Would envy twist into desperation, leading to his demise? Lastly, Lord Preston, a man of austere presence marred by the weight of past alliances, shook visibly, anger rippling beneath the surface. He had no allies but fools, spouting his grandiose plans with naught but a thread of decency. His eyes darted between them, reflecting a torn allegiance, one that hinted at deeper connections and regrets. What might he gain from such discord? Were they all merely pawns in this triste tableau of vengeance? As Poirot listened to their revelations, he began to weave a tapestry of clues through the chaos that encased them. The subtle nuances of their expressions, the clenched fists, the averted gazes, it painted a portrait of repressed emotions tinged with a roiling undertow of hidden motivations. The room, lit dimly by flickering candlelight, seemed to pulse with their collective secrets. In it, shadows writhed, collapsing reality into the realm of human deception. With each intention laid bare before him, Poirot engaged them, constructing a net of inquiries that entangled their words and actions. "Why, Madame Mallory, your interest in our departed friend appears rather—" He paused, his gaze piercing. "Intellectually fueled. Was there ever a question of financial obligation between you?" She recoiled slightly at the insinuation, a tight smile forming on her lips. Gerald cared not for my shrewdness, Monsieur Poirot. Business does not breed affection. Simon's fate meant to dismiss the burdens I carried, but yet I remained ever vigilant in my role. Her calm facade flickered, revealing an underlying current of emotion that betrayed her calculated persona. Poirot strolled between them, feeling the walls of tension thicken as accusations simmered, just beneath the surface. "And you, my Lord Preston," he continued, shifting the focus away from Mrs. Mallory. "What interest did you harbor in this man? It seems your financial ledger reveals a shared venture, a bond of sorts, no?" A deliberate pause hung in the air, demanding acknowledgement. Venture? Perhaps. Yet it was a mere pursuit of wealth unbridled by his foolish recklessness. He thundered, his voice betraying a facade of indignation. There was nothing to gain from this rivalry of egos. As the words escaped him, Poirot noted the tremor in his hands, the nervous fidget that threatened to unravel his defenses. Each suspect's denials intertwined, creating a complex web laden with guilt. Poirot felt himself entrapped, not by their words but by the looming mystery that painted their fates with brushes dipped in jealousy and longing. The storm outside raged ever louder, rattling windows and echoing the turbulent emotions within. Clues emerged only to be drowned in pools of misdirection and misunderstanding, yet the truth pulsed beneath the surface, awaiting his deft hand. In a final symphony of inquiry, Poirot poised himself for revelation. He turned to the group, the storm fading into silence, windswept remnants of chaos lingering in the air. "Ah, mes amis, the tapestry of deceit weaves upon the very essence of our desires," he intoned, his voice resonating gently yet firmly. "Yet, within these shadows lies not a killer, but a misguided puppet. Leo." An icy chill snaked through the silence at the mention of the absent artist. "What of him?" Lady Beatrice gasped, her breath catching as the name echoed through her memory. "Leo, a confidant of Simon, a man caught in the web of your ambitions," Poirot continued, "and the true orchestrator of this dark charade. He impersonated the confidant, crafting discord as he swirled amongst you, manipulating hearts like marionettes." Each eye widened as the unveiling played before them, betrayal etched in their expressions. Poirot paused, savoring the moment. But fear not, for in revealing the truth, betrayal breeds new avenues. Leo sought revenge upon Simon's infidelity, convinced that it would tear you each apart. Yet it was Gerald who fell victim to his machinations. The air grew thick with horror as realization dawned upon them. "But how could you know?" Mrs. Mallory's voice trembled, feeling the shroud of destiny unfolding around her. "He vanished days before." "Nay, madame, no shadow can long hide from the light of truth. I saw the brushstrokes of your emotions, the very same jealousy that ignited this conflagration encased within a veil of artistry, leading us astray. Gerald, unbeknown to his fate, but a player in a game ignited by ambitions." As silence fell upon the assembled figures, Poirot's eyes pierced through the weight of their collective despair. Every heart knows its betrayals, and tonight, my dear friends, we have merely peeled the layers from a sentiment wrapped in deception. With that final glance, Poirot stepped back, leaving the room enveloped in a silence that spoke of lost innocence and the bitter taste of tragedy. As the first hints of dawn broke through the storm-tossed clouds, Poirot delivered his parting words, a reflection upon the labyrinth of human emotion. In the interplay of desires, one finds not just solutions, but the veils of morality torn asunder, revealing the true countenance of the soul. And with that, he departed, leaving Riverton, manor submerged in the shadows of its own making, an indelible testament to the darkness that thrives within the human heart. Chapter 11. A Cold Farewell. The wind howled around Riverton Manor, carrying with it an unsettling foreboding that rumbled like a distant grave. Shadows danced along the walls as the flickering candlelight cast ghostly silhouettes, and in the silence of the oppressive atmosphere lay the remnants of sorrow. A figure lay sprawled just inside the threshold of a dimly lit study. Gerald Fielding's lifeless body was undraped in death, an ink-stained hand clutching a crumpled letter that curled with the remnants of panic. Poirot stood at the entrance, the tension palpable in the air. "Mon ami," he murmured, observing the scene with meticulous care. "It seems the heart can be a treacherous island, full of hidden currents and unforeseen storms." His gaze swept over the scattered documents littering the desk, each one seemingly innocuous, yet brimming with unanswered questions. A veritable puzzle of human emotion had exploded within these walls. In the corner, Lady Beatrice stood, her pallid face illuminated by the dying light of the nearby hearth. The stark contrast of her once vibrant beauty against the coldness of the room created a portrait of desolation. I had just been speaking to him," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He was so full of ambition, yet so foolish." Her words hung heavy, puzzled fragments of longing and resentment echoing. Through the quiet, she had nurtured dreams of grandeur, yet lurking beneath was a jealousy that could suffocate the brightest of spirits. By her side, the calculated visage of Mrs. Mallory mirrored her own turmoil, though her expression was shrouded in steely resolve. "In ambition, some are swept aside, my dear. Gerald was a man given to flights of fancy. I merely wished for the betterment of Riverton. What could his death serve me?" Poirot noted the tightness in her voice, the faintest shimmer of panic lurking under her cloak of control. Torn between desire for prosperity and the pain of past losses, she was a fragmented soul desperate to wield influence over her own destiny, regardless of the shadows it cast. Then there entered Lord Preston, his usually composed demeanor now fractured. The glint of anger in his eyes spoke of hidden grievances. "His death means nothing to me. A foolish illusionist, bounding into riches without a care. But," he faltered, his fingers twitching, "but it brings back past alliances I would rather forget. An unpredictable man with a storied rivalry woven into the very fabric of the manor, he stood on the precipice of loss and vindication." As Poirot absorbed their pain and regret, small details began to fuse together in his mind. The overturned chair, the ink-stained letter, the inner turmoil of each character navigating the murky waters of their own truths. "Now, my friends, allow me a moment," he intoned with a softness that belied his intensity. "Let us consider the scene. You each claim innocence, yet motes of complication flutter in this thick air. Ambitions entwined with blurred loyalties create a tapestry of betrayal. What lies beneath the surface?" Acting with precision, Poirot directed his inquiries toward Lady Beatrice. "Ah, but madam, your affection for Gerald has been placed under scrutiny. Did you not behold his ambition as a rival to your own aspirations?" The flicker of acknowledgement in her eyes warranted a pause. "You seem to harbor both fondness and envy, no?" "I love Simon," she countered, a wildness igniting within her. "Gerald was an apparition in my path. His zeal eclipsed my own." The fervor in her denial perplexed Poirot, a delicate balance of truth and deception swirling around her. Turning next to Mrs. Mallory, he challenged her. "And what of you? Your aspirations for Riverton twist like the ink flowing from your pen. Was there not a rivalry there? Gerald's reckless ambition could have jeopardized your plans." A moment of silence blanketed her response. The fabric of lies began to unravel, revealing raw emotions at war within her heart. Lord Preston, feeling the heat of scrutiny, snapped back defensively. "You think too much, Poirot. Ambitions may lead men to foolish ends, but I was a partner to neither of them. My investments treaded new ground, new ventures." The hiccup in his voice seemed to cast doubt upon his claims. He caught his breath, revealing the tension behind his bravado. As Renoutory, Poirot continued to guide their dialogue. He began to sense something more sinister concealed beneath their words. Truths stained deeper than blood. Who could have orchestrated such chaos? Each of them possessed motivations cloaked in desperation, yet the answer remained maddeningly opaque. And then, amidst the swirling accusations, Poirot's mind seized upon an undeniable truth. The ink-stained letter clutched in Gerald's cold hand. "Ah, mes amis," Poirot announced, regaining their collective attention. "Perhaps this palm of grief shall yield clarity. A correspondence bereft of context can lead us astray." As he slowly uncrumpled the letter, its contents unfurled revelations more troubling than he anticipated. The letter spoke of an affair, a passion ignited between Gerald and someone unknown. an illicit engagement that tethered together their fates. But a twist lay hidden within. It spoke of a pact unwittingly entangled within their desires, a sinister plan set in motion days before, the fatal night. Who, then, was the true architect of this betrayal? Poirot mused, his eyes darting between the trio. The winds outside roared in approval of the revelation, yet he could feel their tempers rising. As suspicion began to swirl like fog in the dim candlelight, he hesitated. At last it was the name Leo that pierced the tension, a silhouette in the shadows of Gerald's ambition, an artist who had fostered bonds with them all. But he was absent, murmured Lady Beatrice. He vanished, days ago. How could he have spurred this chaos? Ah, madame, but shadows hold truths that hearts dare not reveal, Poirot posited. Leo shared a bond spun from both resentment and affection towards those entangled in his web. The implications of such a relationship began burning in the hearts of the gathered, flashing glimpses of their clandestine minglings with the absent artist, betrayal crescendoing into sorrow. But, Mrs. Mallory interjected, confusion mingling with horror, what of intentions? If he orchestrated this, was it not an act of vengeance upon Gerald that sought to conceal truth? Poirot paused, stepping back, letting the remaining silence ripple through their minds until he unveiled the final twist, a revelation laced with bitter irony. This entire charade, it stems not simply from ambition, but from a heartbreak, an artist deeply wounded by love, he declared, the realization striking hard. In his absence, he became a puppet master, ensnaring your fates, and, Gerald, his fall was a mere consequence of your games, a tragic, poetic justice born from the unrepressed desires spinning out of control. Silence uttered its eulogy as the storm outside began to abate, unwinding the tightly coiled feelings housed within Riverton Manor. Poirot took slow steps toward the door, his heart heavy with the intricate tapestry of pain and twisted ambition unveiled before him. And so, dear friends, he intoned with somber elegance, the specter of our desires oft leads us to despair. In seeking to carve our paths, we bind ourselves to shackles forged in betrayal. With that final truth echoing in the flickering darkness, he stepped beyond the threshold, leaving Riverton Manor to reckon with the ghosts of its own making, an enduring monument to the intertwined fates of ambition and love. Chapter 12. The Riddle Solved. The echoes of the storm outside Riverton Manor clawed at the windows, as if the very spirits of the restless dead were bidding for entrance, or seeking retribution. It was on this night, shadowed in the grip of tempestuous winds, that Hercule Poirot found himself in the company of anguish and despair, the remnants of a tragedy faintly humming in the air like the dying notes of a mournful melody. The candlelight flickered feverishly, casting ghostly silhouettes upon the walls, where secrets lay entombed in darkness, waiting to be unearthed. Within the dim confines of the study, where Gerald Fielding had succumbed to fate, 3 figures huddled, each cloaked in a veil of suspicion that hung as heavily as the scent of damp wood. Lady Beatrice stood poised yet trembling, her eyes betraying her calculated composure. He was ambitious, she murmured, her voice barely rising above the howling of the wind. Too ambitious for his own good. The tremor in her tone did little to obscure her underlying tension, an unspoken acknowledgement of rivalry. Mrs. Mallory, dressed in contrasting shades of somber elegance, crossed her arms, tightly the very embodiment of restraint beneath which fervent ambitions seethed. Ambition is a double-edged sword, my dear Beatrice. It elevates some while cutting down others. Gerald fancied himself invincible. He paid the price of arrogance. Her words dripped with the bitterness of familiarity, years spent navigating the treacherous waters of social hierarchy, explicit in her steely gaze. Lord Preston, having taken refuge beside the hearth, repositioned himself under the flickering luminescence, his mind a maelstrom of unease. Ambition? Perhaps, yes. But Gerald was no fool. He had dreams that surpassed mere wealth. His aspirations were grand, but they attracted shadows. At that moment, his eyes gleamed with something unnameable. Was it regret, or perhaps a flicker of outrage? Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot mused inwardly as he surveyed these 3. for he sensed their layers of deception entangled amidst the swirling winds of hidden motives. With meticulous calm, he stepped further into the room, his keen perception augmenting the imminent storm. So, my friends, we stand upon the precipice of tragedy. Would you care to enlighten me of your most vivid recollections of that fateful evening? As he posed the question, he observed intently every breath, every twitch, every fleeting glance. A game of charades played beneath the veneer of civility. Lady Beatrice hesitated, her hand hovering above the letter clasped in Gerald's ink-stained grasp. He received a letter, did he not? One that consumed him entirely, she whispered, and Poirot noted the flicker of guilt in her eyes. A letter that stirred his ambition, perhaps, Poirot interjected, sensing an opportunity. And you, Lady Beatrice, did you not harbor feelings ignited by envy? Her response was immediate, a defensive flicker. The only emotion I felt was relief. Gerald's ambitions threatened to overshadow mine. And you, Mrs. Mallory, what of your lofty aspirations? Poirot turned his discerning gaze to Mrs. Mallory, her unexpected mockery of ambition tinged with disquietude. Your ambitions entwined with the very fabric of Riverton. Did you not see Gerald as a rival? Words, merely words, Monsieur Poirot, she retorted, her expression a delicate mask. I wished merely to uplift the core of this estate. Gerald's downfall served no purpose for me. Indeed, I encouraged his efforts, even if they pained me. The odd sincerity in her tone framed a narrative too composed for one standing amidst the aftermath of loss, and Poirot's thoughts began probing deeper. Lord Preston shifted restlessly under Poirot's scrutinizing gaze. And you, my lord, Poirot inquired. Pardon me, yet your visceral disdain for Gerald belies a connection. Was it savvy business sense that saw you apprehensive? A thunderclap shook the very foundations of Riverton Manor, but Poirot remained unmoved. Lord Preston clenched his jaw in lingering surprise. He was a foolish dreamer. I had no hand in his ill-fated ambitions, he countered with increasing fervor. The storm outside intensified, swirling around them, echoing the chaos brewing in the room. Ah, the storm. The tempest grows louder, fabricating ever more uncertainty among the fragile alliances held within this gathering. Poirot inhaled deeply, probing the depths of each soul in attendance. How many shadows loom behind well-polished facades? As the hours slipped relentlessly onward, Poirot noticed the ink stains on Gerald's crumpled letter, the way they smeared at the edges as if too much passion had spilled within those words, a sign of urgent emotion fused with desperation. It was a small clue, yet one that beckoned him forth. You all knew of this letter. What might it reveal? He ventured, holding it gently. A precious object, vibrantly alive with guilt and regret. A heavy silence cloaked the room as they shared uncertain glances, accusations brewing like menacing clouds. Lady Beatrice spoke first, her voice trembling with hidden intensity. If the letter was the spark that ignited his demise, then we must consider the context. A lover's quarrel, perhaps? Or an affair alongside ambition? Poirot let her words linger, embracing the chaos playing out before him. Each character embodying their own tumultuous history, wax and wane of attention aimed at one another, threading doubt through their very essence. Yet a glimmer of realization dawned within Poirot's mind as he re-examined. Lady Beatrice's words, so filled with bravado, too confident for an alleged bystander. As the truth began to unfurl, Poirot interrupted. Ah, mes amis, there is a singular truth buried among the twists and turns of your fates. But speak to me of Leo. Is it not so that he lingered as a specter upon your ambitions? He watched as a familiar fear eclipsed their expressions. They had not anticipated the artist's name. His absence, however, positions him beautifully within this web. Could he, an artist, entwined with passion, have penned a masterstroke of chaos, setting forth your night of unraveling? Realization swept through the room, a shocking blow as they considered this new direction. Leo, Lady Beatrice breathed, her expression shifting, a chasm of guilt unfurling beneath her bravado. He sought to possess Gerald's heart, Perhaps he sabotaged Gerald out of jealousy. But was it not too neat? Poirot narrowed his eyes, piecing together the labyrinthine connections that had masked a deeper truth. Ah, but it is more than just jealousy. It is a vessel filled with revenge. He turned back toward Gerald's lifeless form, and with a delicate unwrapping of the letter, he found not pleas of passion, but a confession of betrayal, claiming both Lady Beatrice as his muse and Mrs. Mallory as a catalyst conspiring in a game of shadows. Shocking revelations flooded the air, a twist that peeled layers from their facades. A deeper cruelty whispered of dark alliances forged within the realm of a desperate desire. In this riddle, dear friends, I find that it was not merely ambition nor jealousy that led us to Gerald's untimely fall. Nay, it was love twisted into the darkest of betrayals. You, my dear Lady Beatrice, loved Gerald yet hungered for Leo, and you, Mrs. Mallory, sought to snuff the flame of rivalry born from the same sin. A gasp escaped Lady Beatrice, her voice shaken, revealing layers of human complexity. A portrait of chaos painted by hearts misaligned. Still, Poirot, ever vigilant, observed how they cloaked their guilt beneath burgeoning grief. The mask of remorse could not hide the darker truths that pulsed through them all like an unending storm. At that moment, the candles flickered out, plunging them into oppressive darkness. Yet Poirot's mind remained illuminated with understanding. It is said that ambition leads to despair, and looking into your eyes, I see clarity entwined with bitterness, a tragedy weaving its way through your desires. And so, Gerald's death was but a macabre dance, a step performed by all of you, the puppeteers of your own downfall. The air throbbed with the vibration of truth, a haunting resonance reverberating through Riverton Manor. And as Poirot stepped back, the weight of their collective sin descended like a shroud. So, dear friends, in loss, betrayal unfurls. It is a dagger drawing blood from not just the one who falls, but from the hearts that conspired to paint a portrait in shadows. The riddle has found its resolution, and in this moment, we are mere players enmeshed in a tragedy of our own making. And with that profound weight of revelation, Poirot exited Riverton Manor, leaving behind a poignant silence, an echo of shattered dreams and intertwined fates, the essence of humanity reflected in the shadows.